everybody. Welcome back. Forge Your Path podcast, episode number 9. I am really fired up to share this story today because I hadn't thought about this in years. But yesterday, I had a chance to go to the regional wrestling tournament out at Union High School, and it just flooded me with memories. I had a chance to compete there 4 times back when I was a high school wrestler in the 1980s and 90s. And of course, 15 years as a coach, I had the opportunity to go to the regional wrestling tournament, which for our region was held at Harden Central out in Flemington area for countless years. So it's just an amazing weekend to see all kinds of intense action. If you like high school wrestling, if you like high school sports in general, it's an amazing competitive cauldron for so many reasons. So to set the stage, if you know nothing about the sport, or you certainly don't know anything about how New Jersey works, the coolest thing about New Jersey high school wrestling is this. So let me give you the 60-second foundation. In other sports, in most states, football, wrestling, lacrosse, you name it, there are multiple levels which allow for multiple championships. So for example, if you're on a soccer team, or you're on a football team, or you're on a lacrosse team, then what happens is all the competitions in postseason is organized by your school size. So by the end of the year, there might be a group 5 champion, a group 4 champion, a group 3, group 2, a non-public A and B, and so on and so forth. And this is the common structure for many sports. In wrestling specifically, it's often the same. I know if you go to Pennsylvania or New York, Ohio, you have like the 2A, the 3A champion. Other states, you've got the 5A. So realistically, even in an individual sport, there are going to be 3, 4, even 5 state champions for every weight class. So here's what I love about New Jersey wrestling, which makes it so pure and so exciting. For every team in what's known as the NJSIAA, the New Jersey Interscholastic Athletic Association. Did I hit that right? Anyway, you get the idea. Every single wrestler in high school at every single weight is organized into 32 different district tournaments. Top 3 wrestlers then advance to the regionals. At the regionals, for all the wrestlers that made the tournament, 12 in each weight class, only 4 will make it out of the regions, the top 4, and then they wrestle 1 state tournament, 12,000 people in Atlantic City for the 32 wrestlers who qualified, and 1 state champion at each weight. So you make it to the top, you know you are the elite of the elite in the state of New Jersey. So the regional weekend is very exciting because now it's that chance to punch your ticket to go on to the state tournament. And the regionals is really that proving ground where it separates the good wrestlers from the great. So I had a chance to go out and watch the semifinals, spend a couple hours catching up with some old friends. And the semifinals is a great round itself because the winner advances to the finals. Automatically, they're on their way to the state tournament. The loser then goes into that dreaded wrestle background where oftentimes you'll see it. Someone's coming off of a disappointing loss and a tight 1 point or overtime semifinal loss. Now they have to wrestle to win 1 more in order to be in the 3rd, 4th match. So sometimes the semifinals is a highly contested round. So just being in the mix, ton of emotions, ton of memories flood back, and just nothing better than being in that mix. So it reminded me of a story that I had from my coaching days. And this happened almost 8 years ago to the day. And I wanted to recount the story of Region 5 Wrestling 2015. So one of my wrestlers on my team His name was Thomas Tarantino. And Thomas was just that kind of kid that a coach loves to have. He's a once in 10 year kind of a person because he's got all the attributes of everything you would want. He's an incredibly hard worker in the room. So there is no one who's going to outwork him in terms of practice. He's got the incredible focus where when he comes into the room, he's all business and he's going to give it all he has for every single repetition. Same thing for matches. He is completely committed to improvement and goals. So he's a great listener and he's going to be extremely coachable. And I found out a fourth element in the middle of this tournament that I didn't even know that Thomas had, but just an outstanding young man, both on and off the mat. So sophomore year, we're at the regional wrestling tournament. And let me set the stage. There's 2,000 people here at Harmon Central, and our school where I used to coach at the Pingree School, it is a wonderful place, outstanding academic institution, but certainly was not known for its wrestling program. Other great sports traditionally have been outstanding. You think about soccer, swimming, lacrosse. Other sports had always traditionally done very well. Wrestling was not one of them. So for us to even get wrestlers to qualify to make the regional tournament was an extreme challenge. So we had immense pride. We even had someone make it out of what was a very tough district to get to the regionals. So that year, I believe Thomas was one of 2 wrestlers who qualified for the tournament. And so we're underway and it's Wednesday night. Now, what happens is if you don't win your district, so if you take second or third place, you have to wrestle in the prelim round where it's truly an elimination match. So if you win, you advance, and now you're in the remainder of the tournament where now it's down to 8 wrestlers and you advance from there. If you lose, the season's over. Match is over, season's over. So sure enough, we go out on Wednesday night and we're wrestling and we're facing up against a kid from Hopewell Valley. So Thomas, the way he wrestled was very distinct in terms of his style. He was, from the moment the whistle went off, he was in attack mode the entire time. He was in phenomenal shape. He was also an excellent cross-country runner and actually went on to go run cross-country at Middlebury and do really well there. So in this match, Thomas goes out. It's his first time wrestling in the regions, and it's an uncharacteristically slow start. And he finds himself really not quite getting in gear. And we head to the third period, and Thomas is down by 4. Now, I think realizing that time is ticking down, wrestling has 3 2-minute periods, and he's got to make up 4 points. Now, Thomas was not what you would call a home run hitter. He was not the guy that could pull the 5-point move out and throw a wrestler to his back at any given point. So he was going to score 1 to 2 points at a time. Bread and butter, single leg takedowns, and get his escapes. Occasionally, he could turn somebody from top and get a couple of points, but mostly it was going to be takedowns and escapes, low scoring matches. So Thomas goes out and he finally finds his gear. He takes his opponent down to cut the score to a couple of points, and quickly, we realize Thomas's superior conditioning is starting to come to fruition, and he really puts the pedal down. So Thomas goes on a takedown barrage, takes his opponent down for 2 points, gives an escape and lets him up for 1. Takes him down for 2, lets him up for 1. Now, seconds are ticking down, and now Thomas is still down by 2 points as the seconds are waning, and he is putting intense pressure on his opponent. His opponent gets a stalling warning because he's backing up, and Thomas is completely the attacker. So Thomas is a fighter. And so right in until the final whistle blows, he's giving his unbelievably best effort. And sure enough, don't you know it, Thomas notches a takedown with 1 second to go. And I am so fired up. We jump out of our seats. Assistant coach and I are thrilled. And because I know we're headed to overtime. And overtime is beautiful because it's 1 minute, sudden death on your feet. First takedown wins. If it persists, it's going to go to double overtime, which I don't need to explain those rules. But the way we're resting on our feet, we're peaking. This wrestler, this opponent is tanking. And we know Thomas is going to win in overtime. Well, after the takedown, the coach from the other team walks around and the referee, and they all come back to the scorer's table. And he starts to contest that when they went out of bounds with about 40 seconds to go, they started the clock late at the table. And all of a sudden, this discussion ensues. Now, if that ever happens, where there's a scoring issue or a timing issue, the people working the table are supposed to get the referee's attention and stop the match immediately, reset the clock so there's no confusion. In this case, that did not happen. So the referee comes over to the table and we're having this discussion, both coaches, and the person running the clock says, yes, I actually did start the clock 2 seconds late. So then as a result, the referee asks the table and they say, well, did the takedown happen with less than 2 seconds to go? And they say, yes. So then they walk back to the center. They have the wrestlers shake hands and they raise the other opponent's hand in victory, signaling that the match is over. So the takedown that had been awarded in real time to send the match to overtime, to give these kids a chance to see who's going to win, has been taken off the board. So now Thomas goes from having the chance to wrestle in overtime to losing the match. Match over, season over. So immediately he's stunned and he looks at me and he kind of raises his arms in a gesture like, what? Because he's shocked and he walks off the mat. Now, those of you who may not know me very well, perhaps you haven't seen me in a variety of situations, but in a wrestling match, I'm pretty dynamic. And I'm generally a pretty nice guy, a pretty happy-go-lucky guy. But if something upsets me, look out. So immediately, my anger at this situation is an 11 out of 10. I am literally seething with anger. I'm barely able to see because not only has a complete injustice been done, because by the book, this never should have happened the way it's supposed to in a wrestling match. And I'm irate at the scenario. It also couldn't have happened to a more undeserving wrestler than Thomas Tarantino. The kid that does everything right, the kid that works harder than any wrestler in my wrestling room. And after all that blood, sweat, and tears, he gets this match taken away from him by an arbitrary decision with a clock error that was not reconciled in real time. So I am absolutely speechless. And I am contesting this with the referee for multiple minutes, and I'm doing my absolute to retain my anger. And it's requiring every ounce of discipline in my being not to completely explode, not to do something rash, and to just completely lose it, for lack of a better way to put it, because I am devastated by the situation. I'm devastated for my wrestler. And my heart's going about 180 beats a minute right now, just thinking about it. So after about 2 or 3 minutes of this discussion, I am just so sick to my stomach. And I go over to Thomas and he's sitting there and he's kind of waiting for the outcome. And I just look at Thomas and I said, Thomas, I just can't believe it. And he looks at me and he says, it's okay, coach. I'll just work harder next year. And in that moment, I take a beat, because here I am beside myself with anger, with good reason, and really ready to lash out and let my emotion just get the best of me. And here's this wrestler who, if there's anybody who's really the true victim of this unjust circumstance, it's him. He's the one that has to bear this brunt. He's the one that's put the work in. It's been stolen from him. And yet he's got the wisdom to say that in that moment. And it's something that stayed with me the rest of that weekend, rest of that week, I should say, heading into the weekend. He was there to support his teammates on Friday night. On Saturday, he made good on his promise and put the work in the off season, even more than he'd done in the past, and got himself even farther the next year. As a senior, was one of the finest captains I ever had. And after he got eliminated in falling just short of his Quest senior year to make the state tournament, after he had to go out and knowing he'd been eliminated, he had to wrestle one more match just for a 5th, 6th consolation match for the chance to be an alternate for the state tournament. He went out and did that and won a 1-point match, and actually went on to support his teammate the rest of that week. Our one wrestler who in my last year as a coach made the state tournament, he was there all the way in practice. And he even maintained his weight just in the event that someone else dropped out and that he was able to step in as an alternate. So as I was finishing off this book today, Chop Wood, Carry Water, it was just such an incredible moment to remind me of that moment, and that there's really 2 ways you can live your life. 99% of us probably live our life on feelings. The emotions or whatever carries the day, however you feel, is probably what you're going to do. But here's the problem. There's most days where you just don't feel like it. You don't feel like doing the hard work, or you don't feel like having the tough conversation with somebody. You don't feel like doing the right thing because it may be challenging. And the other way to live life, instead of by your feelings, is by your principles. And while that's a road much less taken, what an incredible way to be able to direct yourself and know that while all those choices may never be the easy ones on a day in and day out basis, if you can live by your bedrock of principles of what matters to you and is a principled decision day in and day out, month in and month out, year in and year out, that's how you live an extraordinary life. And in that moment, Thomas Tarantino taught me the true meaning of sportsmanship. He taught me the true meaning of class. And although I had prided myself as a coach to be a role model, to be able to model sportsmanship, to model persistence, to model resilience in all things, in that very moment, I was as close to losing it as I've probably ever been, or had ever been during my educational career during 15 years. And it was Thomas, through that simple statement, that one line, showed his true class and showed his sportsmanship. And sound bites are great, speeches are great, but his actions, what he didn't do in that moment, showed everything. Oftentimes in that situation, you will see wrestlers spike their headgear, throw their headgear, run off the mat, argue with the referee, and worse. And because the emotions are so high, because it's so intense, and because people care so much, it is very human and natural to do that. But the elite, the people that live by their principles, they're guided by something better. And whether it's in our moments that are worst or moments that are best, we're judged by our actions. And Thomas, in the toughest moment probably of his young wrestling career at that point, showed what he was made of. So it's been a couple years since I've thought of that. I only hear from afar. The last time I got a chance to see Thomas, we caught up and had lunch. And I know after graduating from Middlebury and doing a great job there, he was off and running and was just about to start his career as an investment banker. And I have no doubt rather, that because of his principles and because of who he is and what he did every day, that he is on that path for excellence, not just because he was a hard worker, but because he did things the right way, because he's got principles that have guided him the whole way. So thank you, Thomas, for that moment of reminding me what principles really truly look like, what leadership looks like, and to give me that reminder and that guidepost to starting today, as I head into tomorrow, as I head into my work week, to just remember to put those principles back in front of me and to challenge myself to be the person that's proud of looking in the mirror each and every day. So, Thomas, wherever you are out there, thanks for guiding the way. If you enjoyed this podcast today, please share it with some friends. I appreciate all of the feedback and messages I've been getting about it. And just look to keep sharing the message, to keep spreading the news. So if you enjoyed this, please like it, please share it as we keep building our community. Thanks. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it on social media. Also, if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs, please see the show notes for the link to my website. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.